Think about the most exhausted you have been at work this year.
Just really picture it.
Yeah, get that specific feeling in your mind right now, because I am willing to bet that you weren't actually tired from, doing your actual job.
Right. It is almost never the work itself.
No, the work itself, like the designing, the writing, the managing, or building whatever you build, that was probably fine.
It is usually the other stuff.
Exactly. You are tired from the sheer mind-numbing weight of trying to get another human being or a stubborn software program or some bureaucratic committee to just understand a basic sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
You are drained from having to explain and then re-explain and justify and basically force a really simple outcome to happen through this endless gauntlet of misunderstandings.
It is a profound, very specific flavor of exhaustion. And,
Yeah.
what we are doing today in this deep dive is validating that exact exhaustion by looking at the hard, mechanical reality behind it.
Which I'm so excited about.
Yeah, we are exploring a stack of authorial notes and frameworks today. They are titled The Architecture of the Forced Resolution and The Toll of the Broken Channel.
And what makes these notes so incredibly compelling is their total refusal to use soft language.
Right. We are completely stripping away all those poetic metaphors about, creative journeys or, finding your flow.
Which is such a relief because honestly, when you are in the middle of that deep exhaustion, someone telling you to just trust the process makes you want to scream.
It really does. It feels so dismissive.
So today, we are looking purely at the raw skeletal architecture of what these sources call the broken channel.
Yeah, we are going to map out exactly how a bad communication system or an inefficient institution or just a listener who flat out refuses to hear you forces you to pay this completely unfair tax just to bring anything into reality.
So our mission for you today is basically to prove that the burnout you are feeling, it isn't a personal failure.
Not at all.
It is the systemic cost of navigating a broken transmission chain.
So let's start right there with the core delusion that these frameworks just completely dismantle right out of the gate.
The big fantasy.
Yeah, the fantasy version of success is the one that every single motivational speaker and self-help book out there is built on.
Right.
The fantasy is simply, I had an idea, I worked hard to make it, and now it exists.
It sounds so clean when you say it like that.
Yeah, clean and simple.
It assumes you just pull an idea out of the ether, apply some elbow grease, and just plop it down onto the desk in front of you.
Exactly.
But if I am thinking about this critically, that assumes a totally frictionless void. It assumes that there is literally nothing standing between my brain and reality.
Precisely. It assumes a direct, completely unimpeded line. But the reality is that to make absolutely anything real, and I mean anything, whether it is a multi-million-dollar corporate merger or literally just getting your teenager to clean the kitchen.
Oh man, sometimes the kitchen is harder.
It really is. But your idea has to pass through a brutal, highly mechanical sequence. The sources call this the transmission chain. And it is not just a single leap from your head to the world. It is a terrifyingly long series of distinct nodes.
Okay, lay them out for us.
The chain goes like this: thought, words, listener, tool, institution, medium, audience, and finally, the world.
Wait, let's slow down and actually look at those notes, because if every single one of those is a separate step, then that means every single one is a potential point of failure.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's thought, words, listener, tool, institution, medium, audience, the world. I mean, that is an 8-step gauntlet.
It is an 8-step gauntlet where the degradation of your idea is practically guaranteed.
Let's break it down mechanically, step by step.
Okay, so step 1 is the thought. You have an intention in your head.
Simple enough.
Right. But step 2 is words. You have to translate that abstract thought into language. And already, right there, you have a failure point.
Because language is messy.
Exactly.
Yep.
What if your vocabulary is imprecise? What if you are tired and you use the wrong terminology? The idea degrades immediately.
Okay, but let's say my words are perfect. Like, I ran a flawless, crystal clear project brief. I have successfully moved from thought to words.
Good job. But now step 3 is the listener.
Ah, right. Other people.
And this is where psychological filtering comes in. Your perfect words hit the listener's brain, but that listener has confirmation bias.
Oh, they always do.
They have a preconceived notion of what you are going to say, so they literally mishear you to fit their own expectations.
Or they are just distracted by their phone.
Exactly. Or they have some personal insecurity that makes them read a completely hostile tone into a totally neutral email.
I have seen that happen so many times.
Right. You did your job perfectly, but the chain breaks at the listener. The signal is degraded.
I see where this is going. Because even if the listener actually understands me perfectly, we move to step 4, which is the tool.
The tool, yes.
We log into the project management software, and the server crashes.
Or the interface is just so poorly designed that it deletes half our data.
Think about the Mars Climate Orbiter back in the late 90s.
Oh, that is a perfect example.
Right. The engineering was brilliant, the idea was incredibly sound, but one team used metric units and the other team used imperial units.
A classic failure.
The tool, like the mathematical translation node, completely failed. And a $125 million piece of hardware just burned up in the Martian atmosphere.
That is a perfect high-stakes example of a broken node. And if you somehow survive the tool, you hit step 5, which is the institution.
The dreaded institution.
You have the perfect idea, the listener gets it, the software actually works. But your company has a workflow inherited from, like, 1995.
Right, where you need 7 different managers to sign off on a basic budget approval.
Exactly. The institution is designed entirely to protect itself from risk, not to actually facilitate your idea. So your project just sits in purgatory for 3 months.
And we still have 3 steps to go.
We do.
We have to get through the medium, maybe the formatting limits of a presentation deck that forces you to oversimplify all your data. Then the audience, the end users who have a 3-second attention span, and just scroll right past it on their phones.
Right.
And finally, the world, like the actual material reality where unpredictable things happen.
Like a supply chain collapse.
Or a sudden shift in the market. There are just so many ways for this to break.
And when you lay the architecture bare like this, when you really look at it, it forces a massive shift in how we diagnose failure.
How so?
Well, when an idea doesn't get off the ground, the default human response, especially for high achievers listening to this, is internalized shame.
Oh, 100%.
We think, oh, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't persuasive enough, I must be an imposter.
Yeah, we take it all on ourselves.
But if you look at the transmission chain, it changes the diagnostic entirely. You're acting like a plumber who sees that the water has stopped flowing and immediately concludes, well, the concept of water must be fundamentally flawed.
Right. I am a bad plumber, and water is a lie.
Exactly. But no, a real plumber says there's a blockage in the pipe.
Okay, I buy that the system is broken, but I have to push back a little here.
Go for it.
Aren't we letting ourselves off the hook a bit too easily with this?
What do you mean?
Like, if I blame the quote-unquote transmission chain every single time my project fails, I just become a victim. I could just sit around all day saying, oh, the institution is bad and the listeners are lazy, so why bother trying?
Right.
If every node degrades the signal, the only way an idea survives is if someone is manually fixing it at every step. Is it basically a miracle that anything gets made at all?
Honestly, it is a mechanical miracle, yes. But diagnosing a broken pipe isn't victimhood.
Okay.
It is engineering. The framework isn't telling you to give up and cry about it. It is telling you to correctly identify where the friction is actually coming from, so you stop blaming your own character for a mechanical fault.
That makes sense.
We hold on to the fantasy of the solitary genius because it is highly marketable. It sells seminars.
It sells a lot of books.
It really does. But more importantly, facing the reality of the transmission chain is terrifying. Because it requires us to admit we are deeply, deeply dependent on the structural integrity of channels we do not control.
Which naturally leads to the massive question of what happens when that channel inevitably breaks.
Yes.
Because if the ideal scenario is that I say a command once, and it just happens, what happens to my energy and my idea when the listener misunderstands or the tool fails?
This is where we enter the concept of the redo.
The redo?
And the sources define this in a very specific structural way. They define hell, and I mean that literally, not as a fiery afterlife, but as a mechanical state of existence.
Okay.
Hell is the redo.
Hell is the redo. Okay, so let me give an example. If I give a voice command to my smart speaker in the kitchen,
Sure.
I walk in and I say, turn off the lights. That first action, that first push is completely effortless. It is just my intention becoming an action.
Right. It is a generative state. Your brain is moving forward, creating form out of thought.
But if the smart speaker misinterprets my words and, I don't know, starts playing loud music instead, suddenly my forward momentum is totally shattered.
Completely.
I have to stop. I have to evaluate the error, and then I have to execute the command again.
Yes.
Turn off the lights.
And you are saying it differently.
Oh, I'm saying it slower, louder, and with this distinct edge of rising rage in my voice.
Exactly.
Saying it the first time took absolutely zero emotional toll. But saying it the second time feels uniquely enraging. It literally feels like an extraction of my life force.
And that rising rage is completely justified by human biology.
Wait, really? Biology?
Yes, your nervous system is accurately registering a systemic tax. Let's look at the neuroscience of what happens in that exact moment.
Okay, break it down.
When you initiate an action, your brain predicts a resolution.
Huh.
When the resolution happens smoothly, the lights turn off, you get a small dopamine release. The loop closes.
Right. It feels good, normal.
But when the channel is obstructed, your brain is forced into a sudden, highly unexpected context switch.
Oh, I hate context switching.
We all do. You have to move from a forward-looking, creative state into a backward-looking, analytical, corrective state.
Okay.
And this consumes significantly more glucose in the brain. It spikes your cortisol levels because you have just encountered an obstruction to your agency.
So it's not just in my head. Like, my body is actually paying a measurable metabolic price for the smart speaker's bad programming.
Exactly. The first push is creative energy. The second push, the redo, is corrective friction.
Corrective friction.
Your energy is being consumed fighting the architecture of the system before the true work can even continue.
Wow.
Think of it like driving a car.
Okay.
The first push is putting your foot on the gas. It takes energy, sure, but you are moving toward your destination. The redo is trying to drive with the emergency brake fully engaged.
Oh, that sounds awful.
You are burning twice as much fuel, the engine is screaming, you are destroying the brake pads, and you are barely even moving.
That makes so much sense. It is the difference between healthy fatigue and toxic burnout.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, if I hike up a really steep mountain, I am exhausted at the top, but it is a triumphant exhaustion.
Right, because you close the loop.
That is the first push. But if I am driving with the emergency brake on, I am just tearing the machine apart.
Tearing it apart for no forward progress.
But wait, if I am burning all this energy just fighting the brake, fighting the broken channel, what happens to the idea itself?
That is the tragedy of it.
Does the idea even survive the second or third push intact? Or does the exhaustion of correcting the channel actually degrade what I was trying to do in the first place?
The hard physics of this dynamic dictate that the idea rarely survives intact.
Really?
Rarely. Because by the third or fourth push, a dark shift happens in your strategy.
What kind of shift?
You stop optimizing the idea for its own excellence, and you start optimizing it for its survivability through the broken channel.
Oh, wow. Give me a specific scenario of how that actually plays out in the real world.
Okay, think about an architect. They spend months designing this beautiful, highly sustainable, incredibly innovative building. They are excited.
The first push.
Yes. They take it to the city zoning board, which is the institution node of the transmission chain.
Right.
But the board is operating on decades-old, incredibly rigid guidelines. And the board members just don't understand the new sustainable materials.
So the channel breaks.
The channel breaks, the architect gets denied. So they had to do the second push.
For redo.
Right. They revise the plans, maybe they dumb down the materials a bit so the board can understand it. Denied again.
Oh, no.
By the fourth redo, the architect is just exhausted. And they realize something depressing. The board only effortlessly approves standard gray concrete boxes.
Oh, I see it. To save themselves 3 years of legal fights and endless redos, the architect just submits the plans for a standard concrete box.
Exactly. The friction of the channel literally shaped the final product.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It happens every day.
Yeah.
You sand off the edges of your idea so it stops getting stuck in the pipe.
Yeah.
You shrink your vocabulary so the lazy listener can grasp it. You reduce the scope of your project so the bad software can process it.
Wow.
The redo doesn't just exhaust you. It actively diminishes the potential of what you were trying to bring into the world.
That is incredibly depressing, but also deeply validating to recognize.
It is validating.
Because when you are the architect in that scenario, the frustration isn't just about the extra work.
No.
The frustration is the sheer injustice of it.
Yes.
Like, why am I the one compromising my vision and sweating over these revisions when I didn't write the city's terrible zoning laws?
Exactly.
Why am I paying for their bad channel?
You have hit on the exact core of why the redo feels like hell.
It really does feel like hell.
The texts we are studying make a crucial structural distinction here to explain that exact injustice.
Mm-hmm.
It is the difference between origin and involvement.
Involvement versus origin. Break down the mechanics of that for me.
So you are part of a system, whether it is your workplace, your family, or your local government, you are involved. When you try to push an idea through that system, your involvement requires you to navigate its architecture. But being involved in a system does not mean you are the origin of its brokenness.
Okay, so if I join a company today, I am involved in their project management flow, but I didn't create the flow.
Precisely. You inherited it. And this is where the notes do something really fascinating.
What's that?
They redefine a very loaded word.
Sin.
Sin.
Yeah.
We culturally think of sin as a personal, moral failing, like a bad deed.
Right, like lying or stealing.
Exactly. But functionally, in this framework, a sin is simply a pre-existing break in the transmission chain.
Oh, interesting.
A functional sin is a trapped consequence in the architecture.
What does a functional sin look like in a typical office, for example?
Okay, a functional sin is the manager who refuses to read a brief and demands you explain it to them verbally every single time, wasting an hour of your day.
Oh, I know that manager.
We all do. Or it is the institutional bureaucracy that was designed 20 years ago to protect some fragile executive who doesn't even work there anymore.
Right.
And now, that same bureaucracy forces every single employee to fill out 5 redundant forms.
That is infuriating.
It is. Or in a personal setting, it is a family pattern of silent avoidance where nobody will address the elephant in the room.
Oh, wow.
And that forces you to constantly navigate around their unhealed trauma just to have a normal holiday dinner.
Wow, yeah.
Those are systemic sins.
And the moment my new project or my attempt at a normal conversation touches that broken workflow or that family pattern, the chain stops.
It stops dead.
I am forced to redo.
Yes. You are now forced to pay the cost of getting through a defect that you did not invent.
Unbelievable.
The system has essentially generated a bill for its own inefficiency, but instead of paying the bill itself, it hands the invoice to you.
The invoice.
The framework calls this the misplaced invoice.
The misplaced invoice. Man, if you are listening to this deep dive on your commute right now, just think about that one specific roadblock person or that one ridiculous process you have to deal with today.
It's a heavy thought.
It is. You are likely paying a systemic toll, not a personal penalty. It is like, well, it's like moving into a new apartment.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Right. You sign the lease, you get the keys, you walk in, and you try to turn on the lights. Nothing happens.
Pitch black.
So you call the city, and they say, oh, the previous tenant left a massive $10,000 unpaid utility bill. We aren't turning the power on until it is paid.
Right.
You didn't use that electricity. You didn't leave the lights on, but you are the one sitting in the dark.
That analogy perfectly highlights the material reality of systemic debt.
It's so unfair.
It is deeply unfair
Mm.
because the debt doesn't magically evaporate just because the original bad actor, the previous tenant, the old CEO, the lazy founder, left the scene.
Right.
The debt is stored in the system. It is trapped right there in the architecture.
Yeah.
And the person who inherits the space, the person who simply wants to turn the lights on and do good work, has to metabolize that trapped cost.
Which explains the rage.
Yes. Your nervous system registers the profound unfairness of having to open your own wallet to pay a stranger's debt.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
If I am the new tenant and I just sigh and write a $10,000 check to the city so I can have electricity,
Well, what happens?
aren't I just subsidizing the brokenness? Like if I pay the previous owner's bill, the city gets its money, the previous owner faces absolutely no consequences, and the system learns that it can just extort the next person.
You are absolutely right.
But by doing the second push and constantly covering for the lazy manager or the bad workflow, aren't we actively enabling the bad channel to stay bad?
You have just articulated the ultimate trap of the entire framework.
The trap.
What you are describing, the agonizing choice between paying the unfair bill or sitting in the dark, is what the sources call the double bind.
The double bind. This is the part that I think destroys people the most.
Without a doubt.
Let's spend some real time here because this is where the theory hits the pavement of our daily lives.
The double bind is the defining feature of systemic hell.
Okay.
A normal choice is between a good option and a bad option. A difficult choice is between two hard things.
Right.
But a double bind is a closed loop. It is a trap where every available response costs you something deeply unfair, and you are forbidden from naming the contradiction.
Okay, let's map out the trap. Let's make it concrete. Let's say I am a mid-level manager trying to implement a new diversity initiative that the company publicly claims it wants.
Okay, good scenario.
But the HR department's actual internal policies actively block it at every single turn. I am holding the misplaced invoice.
Yes, you are.
So, option A is I stop. I refuse to pay the bill. I refuse to do the 10th push against HR.
Okay, and if you choose option A and stop, what is the mechanical result?
The initiative fails.
Exactly. The transmission chain remains broken. The truth never gets through. The idea dies. The company stays exactly as it is.
The lights stay off in the apartment.
The lights stay off. And crucially, because you were the one championing it, the system will likely blame you for the failure.
Oh, they always do. I guess they just didn't have what it takes to lead.
Exactly. Quitting preserves the obstruction and often results in you taking the blame for the system's inertia.
Right. If I stop pushing, I become the scapegoat for their bad architecture. That is totally intolerable.
It is.
So I look at option B. I continue. I keep pushing. I do the redo. I spend my weekends rewriting the proposal to appease HR. I basically do HR's job for them.
And if you choose option B, your idea might eventually get through.
Finally.
The initiative might launch, but the cost is staggering.
Oh, yeah.
You are forced to spend your finite life force, your weekends, your metabolic energy, correcting a failure you did not create. You are paying for their functional sins.
It's exhausting.
And worse, as you pointed out earlier, you are camouflaging the brokenness of the HR department.
Right.
Because the initiative launched, executive leadership thinks the channel works perfectly.
So quitting preserves the obstruction, but continuing makes me pay for the obstruction while hiding it from the people who could actually fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are caught in a complete contradiction. The system broadcasts two incompatible commands.
Like what?
It says, succeed and be innovative, but do not challenge our broken rules.
Ah.
Or in a family dynamic, it says, tell us the truth about your feelings, but do not say anything that makes us uncomfortable.
Fix the problem, but don't name the person who caused it.
Yes, that is the exact trap. And if you stay silent, the lie survives.
But if I speak up?
If you speak up and name the broken channel, the system attacks you for being disruptive.
Of course it does.
The sources refer to the exhaustion of carrying this contradiction as success-linked moral load.
Success-linked moral load.
It is the biological weight of carrying unmetabolized systemic debt.
Let's talk about that biological weight, because if you go on LinkedIn right now,
Oh boy.
or read any airport business book, the prevailing cultural answer to the double bind is incredibly toxic.
It really is.
Modern hustle culture says the answer is always, never give up, grind it out, be a problem solver, winners find a way.
And through the lens of the transmission chain, what does that advice actually demand of a person?
Well, it demands that you willingly become a shock absorber for a broken world.
Yes.
It tells you that never giving up is a virtue, when in reality, in a broken system, never giving up is just a highly unfair tax on the individual.
Completely.
It's telling you to blindly keep paying the previous owner's electric bill forever and to smile while you do it.
It is the demand for infinite elasticity from the individual to compensate for the total rigidity of the institution.
Wow. Infinite elasticity from the individual to compensate for the rigidity of the institution. That hits hard.
It's the reality for so many people.
So if I am listening to this and I realize I am trapped in a double bind right now, maybe with a toxic boss or an impossible client, how do I get out?
It's the harsh part.
How do I discern when paying the toll is actually worth it and when I should just let the channel remain broken and walk away?
The framework provides a diagnostic for exactly this dilemma.
Oh, good.
But it requires abandoning the false, simplistic binary of never give up versus always quit.
Right.
Instead, it demands what the authors call clinical discernment of the ledger.
Clinical discernment of the ledger.
You have to look at the friction objectively and ask,
Yes.
what part of this burden is mine? What part belongs to the system? And what part is a lie?
Walk me through how to actually do that sorting process, because when you are burned out, everything just feels like a giant, undifferentiated mass of stress.
Sure. Let's go back to your diversity initiative example.
Okay.
You sit down and look at the ledger. If the project is stalling because you failed to research the legal compliance requirement,
Then that's on me.
exactly, that burden is yours. That is a failure in the words or thought node of your own making.
Right.
You pay that bill through your own repair and hard work. You own it.
Fair enough. I fix my own mistakes.
But if the project is stalling because HR has a culture of cowardly leadership, that refuses to make a decision,
Then that burden is theirs.
it is not
Yeah.
yours. Now you have to decide if the value of the final outcome, the launched initiative, is actually worth the personal cost of the structural drag.
And how do I make that calculation without just falling back into the trap of doing their work for them?
By understanding the difference between false sacrifice and real sacrifice.
Oh, what is the difference?
The sources warn heavily against false sacrifice.
Wait.
False sacrifice is when you absorb the lies, do the redo in silence, and carry the load so that the system never has to face its consequences or change.
Okay.
You act as a buffer. You become, quite literally, a landfill for unprocessed institutional sin.
A landfill for unprocessed institutional sin.
Yes.
That is such a visceral image because we tell ourselves a story that we are being a hero. I am carrying the team. I am taking one for the company.
But you aren't.
Actually, we are just enabling the dysfunction. We are the reason the bad manager never gets fired because we keep silently fixing their mistakes before anyone sees them.
Precisely. You are preventing the feedback loop of reality from reaching the people who need to feel it.
So what is real sacrifice then?
Real sacrifice, according to this framework, looks very different. Real sacrifice is paying the cost necessary to force the hidden consequences to become visible.
Okay, how?
It means standing in differentiation, speaking the truth, and refusing the misplaced invoice, even though it will cause immediate conflict.
Give me the script for that. What does real sacrifice actually sound like in a meeting?
It sounds like naming the architecture out loud.
Like what?
You say, I am fully capable of delivering this project. However, the current approval workflow requires a 3-week delay that is mathematically incompatible with our deadline.
Okay, laying out the facts.
I will not silently absorb that delay by working nights and weekends. We must either change the deadline or dismantle the workflow. You name the broken channel.
Which is terrifying, because the moment you name the broken channel, the system usually attacks you.
It absolutely will. The texts call this the law of the sensor.
The law of the sensor.
Yes. Think about it. If a fire alarm goes off in a burning building, the lazy occupants don't get mad at the fire.
Right.
They get mad at the alarm for making such a terrible noise.
Oh, that is so true.
The sensor, registering the high temperature, gets blamed for the heat.
Mm-hmm.
But forcing the system to look at its own brokenness is the only way to actually break the double bind.
Which forces us to completely redefine what it actually means to succeed.
We have to.
We started this deep dive with the fantasy of success. I had an idea, I made it, it exists.
Which we know is a lie.
If that is a lie, what is the hard physics definition of success?
The fantasy version is gliding through the transmission chain without a single redo, basically untouched by friction.
Which never happens.
Since that doesn't exist, the texts offer a much more grounded, realistic definition.
What is it?
True success is the forced resolution of enough failed states in the transmission chain that the intended thing can finally become real.
The forced resolution of enough failed states?
Yeah.
I have to be honest, that sounds more like a military operation or a plumbing job than a creative endeavor.
It is an engineering reality. When you look at a launch product, a published book, or a reform policy, the final result might have your name on it.
Right.
But the path to that result required you to resolve dozens, maybe hundreds, of micro failures that were not simply you.
I had to solve myself, obviously. I had to overcome my own procrastination or my own bad draft.
That's part of it.
But I also had to solve the listener's confirmation bias. I had to solve the software crashing. I had to bypass the inherited confusion of the institution.
Yes.
I basically had to play translator, diplomat, and mechanic at every single node.
Exactly. And this reframe destroys the myth of the solo, untethered genius who is simply blessed with a golden path.
Goodbye to the solitary genius.
Good riddance. It frames the person who succeeds as the ultimate systemic troubleshooter. Success is not a measure of your pure brilliance. It is a measure of your willingness to absorb the unfair cost of the second, third, and 10th push until the channel is finally forced open.
It is like being a snowplow driver in the middle of a blizzard.
Oh, I love that image.
Right. Everyone driving behind you on the highway is listening to the radio, sipping their coffee, and thinking, wow, the road is naturally so clear today. Driving is so easy.
They have absolutely no idea.
They didn't see you grinding your heavy steel blade against the black ice for 40 miles. They didn't see you burning massive amounts of fuel or taking the brutal physical impact of the snowbanks just to make that clear path exist in the first place.
The snowplow analogy is perfect because it highlights the final, perhaps most important element of this framework.
What's that?
The shared nature of the benefit. The texts call this the principle of the goose and the gander. When you finally force the thing to work, when you endure the redo and you clear the channel, you don't just clear it for yourself.
Right. If I am the one who finally forces HR to dismantle that terrible workflow so my initiative can survive, the next 10 people who try to launch an initiative get to glide right through.
Exactly.
I paid the systemic toll with my time and my stress, and they get the smooth ride.
Which proves that success is never purely individual. It is an event in a relational field. By forcing the resolution, you altered the architecture of the system for everyone who comes after you.
But this brings me back to my deepest worry for the listener right now, like the worry about sheer exhaustion.
It's a valid worry.
If success is basically just becoming a professional snowplow, a professional troubleshooter for other people's broken channels and lazy listening, how do we protect ourselves?
We have to.
I don't want to spend my whole life being a snowplow for a broken world.
Yeah.
How do we succeed without being entirely consumed by the injustice of the redo?
The protection. And this is the core takeaway from the entire stack of notes we've been looking at, lies entirely in naming the dynamic.
Naming it.
Yes. Systemic literacy is the shield. When you are in the middle of the third redo with that bad manager, and you feel that familiar rage and exhaustion rising in your chest, the default human reaction is to internalize it.
The shame spiral. What is wrong with me? Am I a bad communicator? Why is this so hard for me when it seems easy for everyone else?
Exactly. You turn the system's failure into a referendum on your own worth.
Yeah.
But if you have systemic literacy, if you understand the hard physics of the transmission chain, you stop the shame spiral cold.
You just stop it.
You look at the blockage, you feel the structural drag, and you say, this is not my incompetence. This is a broken node. This is the systemic toll of a broken channel.
You label the invoice.
Yes.
You look at the $10,000 utility bill and you say, this is not my debt. I am choosing to pay it right now because I want the lights on, but I know for a fact it isn't mine.
Yes. You completely separate the payment from your identity. You say, this pain is happening, and my energy is moving through it to resolve it, but this failure is not my name.
That is so freeing.
When you stop expecting the fantasy of a frictionless void, and you accept the mechanical reality of the forced resolution, it doesn't make the second push effortless. It still takes energy.
Right. You still have to push.
But it completely removes the psychological suffering of false guilt.
It stops you from being gaslit by the system. Like if you know you are standing inside a wind tunnel, you stop wondering why you have to shout to be heard.
Beautifully put.
You don't think your voice is weak. You know the environment is hostile.
Precisely. It allows you to spend your energy on the actual task, rather than spending your energy questioning your own sanity.
So let's bring all of this structural theory back down to the ground for the person listening right now. What we have mapped out today is the hard physics of making an idea real.
Hard physics.
If you are exhausted right now, deeply and fundamentally drained, it is likely because you are operating inside a long, fragile transmission chain.
The hell you are feeling is the redo. It is the second, third, and 10th push required to overcome a broken listener, a bad tool, or a stagnant institution.
You are holding a misplaced invoice. You are paying an unfair tax for a break in the system that you did not originate.
And you might feel trapped in that double bind.
Right, where quitting means letting the idea die, but continuing means spending your life force paying for someone else's functional sin.
But remember, true success isn't escaping that tax. No one escapes it.
Nobody.
True success is simply the forced resolution of enough of those breaks that your idea finally survives the journey into the world. You are the snowplow clearing the path. You are the sensor forcing the system to acknowledge the fire.
Which leaves me with one final, slightly provocative thought for you to mull over as you go back to whatever project, initiative, or relationship is draining you right now.
Leave them with this.
Think about the snowplow. When you finally force your idea through, when you endure the redo and you successfully clear that broken channel, does the channel actually stay clear for the next person?
That's the question.
Or does the gravity of reality, the sheer entropy and laziness of the institution, immediately begin to degrade the transmission chain again the moment you stop pushing?
I think often does.
The next time you feel utterly exhausted, stop and ask yourself, are you truly tired from doing your own work, or are you just paying the systemic toll of a broken channel?
Diagnosing the friction correctly is the first step to reclaiming your energy.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep pushing, but make sure you know whose invoice you are paying. We will see you next time.